Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the Art of Texturing panel today. My name is Elise Testa, and I'm the Field Marketing Specialist at Foundry. It's my pleasure to introduce my colleague, Rory Woodford, who will be hosting the panel, and our four fantastic guest speakers. Today, we have the pleasure of hosting Adam Goldstein, who is a lead texture artist at Framestore. We also have Vikas Panigrahi. He is the head of assets at Method Studios. Chun Yang, CG generalist at Scanline VFX, and Rain Anderson, who works as in the creative development and look supervision at Creatures of Art. Just some quick housekeeping before we get started. So everybody is aware, this session will be recorded and the link will be sent to your inbox at the end. Also, after the panelists do a quick introduction, we'll be leading into a live Q&A with the audience. So if you have any questions that you'd like to ask the panelists, just put it into the questions tab on the right-hand side. Over the past 7 months, Foundry has hosted nearly 40 virtual events. These virtual events have been a mix of webinars, skill-ups, and sessions. Webinars are technical deep dives. Skill-ups are focused on learning new tips and tricks for your workflows and gaining new skills to advance your career. And sessions are similar to what's going on today, typically panel-like discussions with leading industry professionals. If you want to watch any of our previous virtual events, they are available on our live stream page. And also, if you'd like to check out our Foundry events page, you can see what's to come, including an event with Tony Lyons next week. He'll be introducing the Nuke Survival Toolkit on October 28th during a Foundry Skill Up. The following week, on November 3rd, we'll be hosting an India Spotlight, and the topic will be how to progress your career with the local community. And on November 5th, we will be unveiling Katana 4.0 in the webinar Lights, Camera, Katana 4.0. So if you have any feedback, any questions about our virtual events, want to get involved, please feel free to reach out to us at virtual.events@foundry.com. Also, we have our Foundry Learn Hub at learn.foundry.com. There you can find great tutorials for all of our products, user and developer guides, and more. And below you can just see some examples of the tutorials that we have available, including a new edition, which is the Beginner Guide to Texturing Mari. Also, I'd like to let you know about Foundry's Insights Hub. On the Insights Hub, you can find articles and case studies. Here again are just a couple of examples of what's been recently posted. The Insights Hub is on our website, but if you're really interested, you can also subscribe to our quarterly newsletter to get updates sent directly to your inbox. And also, if you'd like to follow us on social media, you can find us either at the Foundry team or at Foundry team. And if you're an artist that likes to share their work on social media, tag it with Made with Mari or Made with Nuke. We love to see your work and we love to share user-generated content. So the more, the better. And then finally, I'd just like to say thank you again to all of our speakers for joining us today, for offering their time and insight. Also to all of the speakers and studios who have taken part in our virtual events the past 7 months. Without you, we couldn't have done this. And thanks to your contribution, this series has been a great success. So with that being said, I'd just like to thank everyone for being here and pass it on to Rory.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, I just wanted to say we're super excited today. We have just launched our Mari 4.7 public beta. This includes a whole bunch of new enhancements based on the feedback we got from our successful 4.6 V4 release, where we did lots of little quality of life things. But on top of that, our main kind of features we're bringing to this new release is a brand new shelf, a place where you can manage your library of brushes, materials, presets, etc. Some beautiful tooltips to make it really easy to share and have all those at your fingertips, as well as a new procedural masks system where you can create masks using procedural nodes, geochannels, things like that to kind of get smarter masking workflows with your materials, the layer stack or the node graph, and as well as a few more advancements in the node graph with our multi-channel breakpoint node and a material isolation view, which is all very, very cool stuff. I do recommend you all go and have a look at the website, foundry.com/product/mari/beta/4.7, where all the details are there, as well as download links. And that's it from my product updates, and I shall pass it over to Adam, who will start us off with the introductions of the speakers.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Adam. This is Jack, and we're very happy to be here. Born in Israel, but I'm becoming a proud Quebecer, which for those who don't know, is like a Canadian, except my kids speak French. Now, I don't speak French, which makes parenting hilarious. I have worked on a few films. I'm a lead texture artist at Framestore, which I love to death. I'm happy to work there till my retirement. But like many people, I started as a generalist. First half a decade at Technicolor, I was a modeler, comper, everything in between. But later on, I got to Digital Dimension. And there I started texturing, especially in Medus Arts, which was an internal small team of beasts of artists. Steve Jugenville, Samuel Poirier, Dave Gagnon. Dave Gagnon really taught me how to texture. And Medus Art did high-end covers. You can see here StarCraft 2, Assassin's Creed, and also promotional art, like magazine covers, posters, giant prints for E3, that sort of thing. Now, the workflow for high-end character work was similar kind of to Udim's, because every little piece of armor had to have its own texture map, but they were all textured in Photoshop. So texturing multiple 8K maps in Photoshop and keeping balance was a nightmare. And we did a lot of overtime. And fast forward to Framestore, where I am now. I started there as a lighter, actually, but very quickly realized that was a real job, and I needed to get back to the art as soon as possible. And I moved to texturing under Michael Borhi, and one of the first big shows I did there was Tarzan. So I had to texture these massive rock environments that had to hold up to slow-moving close-ups, and painting drips manually between the cracks took forever, but I really enjoyed it. Geostorm is a less-known project I want to talk about because it was the first time for me that I really saw the power of Mari. The Mari procedurals combined with the ability to handle giant geometry. It just saved our lives. Framestore was just after Gravity, and the pitch for Geostorm was 10 times Gravity in a quarter of the time. And this project was led by Thomas Gillet, who is a genius at procedurals, and he blew my mind away with how efficiently he managed to solve it. We all built the spaceships based on his materials, and we delivered in record time. Like, despite the workload, Mari helped us all go home in time, and it's still to this day, we have no overtime in textures. Beauty and the Beast was the exact opposite. Everything is bespoke and painted. I worked on Cadenza with the piano for this show, and my takeaway was the amazing references we got from Disney. They just built a grand piano and ripped it apart so we can texture everything perfectly. And before this project, if I would think that layering a blue paint and a gold paint on top was enough, for this I really saw the workshop they painted in was so messy that blue was splattered over gold, which was over blue, over gold. So it really made for a very beautiful asset that held up in close-ups. So I learned a lot. Alien Covenant Dream Project. I co-led this one with Tom Gillet. He did the ship, and I led everything else. And the Covenant ship was so heavy. Like, just the front of the ship was so heavy that when we realized we needed decal work, then he just baked all the procedurals from little pieces into one layer, and I painted the decals in another layer on top because we could only get 2 layers working. And the creature was a dream to work on with Ridley Scott on an alien creature like my 14-year-old self would flip. Another dream project, the scope, the variety. From working on a city, I led the build of Las Vegas, to scratching up a car or the pieces, the small bottom of the wooden horse that he holds. It was really an honor to participate in such an amazing film. But my true love is creature work. I absolutely love creating something that has a soul. And if the challenge involves creating something from a brief with no scan provided, that's the most fun. Really, the 2 reasons I really enjoy working in films is having the time to explore and refine, and the collaborative nature. Like the creatures on the right that you see from the Suicide Squad, I textured myself from nothing. But on the left, it's based on the work of Nesta Smith, the Goblin. And Nesta is so talented, but then the brief changed. She was already off the project, and I realized I absolutely love both the sense of ownership that comes with texturing something from scratch, but also the collaborative nature of picking up someone else's work and having fun with that. Now, to end with some inspiration, just general inspiration for me, I'll start with Samuel Poirier's work. Like, he's just a genius. Sitting next to him at work was a joy. If people tell you that the digital generation don't have geniuses like Michelangelo or Bernini, you show them Samuel Poirier's work. Next is the best all-painted matte shot of all time from Indiana Jones. Michael Pangrazio painted this for 3 months, one shot, amazing. And then last but really not least, the arrival at Rivendell. So I was going to be an engineer in my life. And I was midway through university when I saw Lord of the Rings, and it changed my life. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Now with a big ass.
Hello, everyone.
Just loading up your deck.
Waiting for that. I can't really see my slides though.
Yeah, just go ahead with there you
Got
go.
it. Awesome. So hi guys, I'm Vikas Panigrahi. I'm working as an head of assets in Method Montreal right now. I started working I started visual effects as a career. Got a diploma from animation and visual effects from India, and started working on different shows in like back in MPC and Digital Domain. So I'm currently working as a head of assets now in Method Montreal, but before this, I was working as an asset supervisor. These are a couple of the shows like Birds of Prey, Bloodshot, and Wonder Woman, which is coming on soon. I say Mari is a wonderful, wonderful software for texture insight. Like a lot of time, I get to know that like if there won't be any Mari, I wouldn't be a texture artist. Sorry about that. Oopsie. And these are a couple of the shows which I worked on back in the studios. So yeah, thank you very much for coming here. I'm really looking forward to talk to all of you. Thank you.
Thanks, Vikas. And if we can load up Chanchan's slides, fantastic.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chanchan, and I'm currently CG generalist at Scanline Visual Effects. So for career milestones, I think everybody will remember the first job they ever got. So my first job was working on Barbie features, and first job out of school, and made a lot of sparkling things on that show. But it was a great experience, although I do know that I wanted to get to the film industry. So the whole time I was actually applying for film jobs, but I couldn't get in anywhere because the kind of animation work I was doing does not help with if you try to get into film. So I was actually working on a bunch of my own personal projects until it was good enough. And the second milestone is the first film I ever worked on, and it's Sin City, the second Sin City movie. Actually had to take a huge pay cut and basically starting from scratch because I never had any film experience. But once you get that first one, and the rest is just, if you've done a good job and people like you, the rest is just snowballing. And after that, I got to working Digital Domain. I got to working Sony Picture Imageworks, ILM, and now Scanline Visual Effects. So having that first experience was really helping just as you go, start to gain more experience. But after a while, though, for me, I feel like once you get used to it, like this new, like kind of like working in many different films, I do feel a little bit stagnant. I do feel like I'm kind of staying in the same box all the time. And when you're good at doing something and people just keep giving you the same things, so you do turn to do the same things over and over after a little while. So the next thing I did was kind of feel like I need to challenge myself a little bit. So I actually took a sabbatical. It ended up being 9 months. I wanted to be only 3 months, but because of COVID, I actually ended up being like a 9 month sabbatical. But during that time, I got to try something new. I started to make more tutorials online for YouTube and to help maybe people that know a little bit less than me with their skills. And it was a great experience because I was just trying whatever I wanted to try during that time because I'm the one that decided what I wanted to do. And I feel like I filled up a lot of like skills, holes in my skills during that time. I got to experiment with just different kind of style of art that I wanted to try. So it was a really good period of learning for me, like a growth. For me, I feel like I finally got out of that comfort zone and started to learn a bit more. And for inspiration, so I didn't really grow up with like the more typical like stories like Star Wars and things like that. I more grew up with Japanese anime and manga. So for me, the thing that turned me into a nerd is things like Evangelion that I probably watched 100 times. And anything Studio Ghibli, it's a major inspiration for me as a kid, and hundreds and hundreds of different mangas. And currently, I really enjoy, there's so many inspirations, like a music, movie, TV show, like there's so many of them. We obviously don't have time to talk about all of them, but for me, what really made me kind of want to know that I do art, one of the guy's work is Craig Mullins, his paintings. Because in the beginning, actually, before 3D, I actually wanted to be a concept artist. So I was actually trying to teach myself how to paint. And Craig Mullins was one of the biggest inspiration for me. Really enjoy that, how he has, I really like his style of like a rush, like rough brush strokes, but every element of like a good painting, like it totally captures the light. I really like that style for myself. Sometimes I like to mimic that style. And currently one of the my favorite 3D artists is this Chinese guy called Xu Zhelong. And he does all these like crazy designs of 3D sculptures and actually great texturing as well, great material as well. And I think he also actually make real life porcelain objects out of his sculpts. So that's one of the guys I've been looking at a lot recently. So very glad to be here. Can't wait to talk to you guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chen Chen. Yeah, you're definitely doing a great service to the online community with your YouTube channel and your tutorials there. And if we can load up Rain's, there we go. Rain, go ahead.
Hey all, how you doing? Thanks so much for being here. Name's Rain. I'm currently in my own studio, Creatures of Art, where after about 20 years in the industry, I broke off onto my own, taking a chance and start to get more into the overall creative development side. I'm also currently a mentor at CG Spectrum, helping out there with different students, and also working with a studio in South Africa currently as a look supervisor on a feature animated film. I've worked for studios such as Pixar and Weta, where I had the chance to get my hands on Mari for the first time back in 2009 as on the beta test team. So I've been working with that for quite a long time, and really couldn't imagine my life without it, especially after coming from the Photoshop days and if anybody remembers the Deep Paint 3D days, where was a very interesting transitional time. I've also worked with ILM, where I worked with Chun Chun there, and got the opportunity to move in as a texture supervisor there. I guess we can go to just reversing a bit, going into some inspiration. So currently for me, as an artist, we all go through our different kind of inspirational periods, and growing as an artist, it's really hard, I find, to actually pinpoint it to one inspiration. So currently what I've been doing is really looking at this stage with Look, really looking at lighting of film and animation, as well as games, and how that drives texture and look, and how important that is, and how that works really closely with how we perceive our textures and what we should actually be painting and seeing. And then the other thing for me now that I learned, especially at ILM while working on Valerian under Philippe Rebours, was material complexity, and how to layer your materials and build out your textures with complexity without over texturing and over complicating, and helping your eye lead to certain things that you want to see. So I just put down a whole bunch of films that I've just been absolutely in love with, lighting wise and even story wise, as well as just various photos and different things that help inspire me as I want to kind of build out the look for the project that I'm working on. And as we transition into that, I just have a couple slides of different assets that I had the opportunity to work on that kind of sell this point. So this was a really fun project. which was ILM's Vancouver's first hub project, Valerian. So I had the opportunity to work on Igon, but also what made it so great is the team we had. And it was a very rare thing that we had so many aliens in this show that every texture artist got to almost look of their own, as well as texture, take their pick of whatever character they wanted to texture, which was great. This again was primarily driven with our Mari and Katana setup through RenderMan. So everything we were doing on this show was for the creature side, and for some of the anything that really got animated was Mari and Katana. And then because I love horror movies, I had the opportunity to work on a small little film called Overlord, which was a lot of fun, and do the textures on this guy. The good thing about this was the prosthetics were already so good that it was just great to add to it and build out from there. Again, super vital being able to bring in necessary cameras into Mari and drive texture work along with Katana for this type of stuff. And a little hard surface asset, which was super fun to work on. I got the opportunity to actually help design the kind of the geometric camouflage and the look for the ATST, a small little part in Last Jedi, but it was a lot of fun and a little kind of blast from the past for me. Growing up with the Star Wars movies was a super fun time to work on that type of stuff. But again, all this goes back to the lighting and how it's shot and what needs to be seen and what you need to push forward. But yeah, hopefully get to talk with some of you guys with the questions. Thanks again.
Thanks very much, Rain. So yeah, at this point we shall kind of open up the floor as it were to questions. So anyone who has any questions for any of our speakers today, please put them in the chat window, or preferably the questions tab on the little right hand side here. You'll see there's a little questions tab where you can put all your questions for our lovely speakers. But to get the ball rolling, yeah, so what does it take to stand out as a texture artist? I can start with that topic, as is one of our rounds for the webinar. Let's start with you, Bikas, because you're in the top left. Oh, you're mute. Yeah.
Sorry, let me unmute myself. I mean, in a production like in a production schedule or a show, I think texture artist is I think the most important department, I would say. Being a texture artist. I love oil paintings back in the days when I used to do it, and putting brush strokes on a canvas and putting brush strokes on like Mari on a digital surface is at the same giving you the same enthusiasm basically. I mean, I love to doing both the stuff. So again, like for being a texture artist, I think we really need a good eye, like how material looks like, how colors basically. On top of that, you should have like color knowledge. Like there are a lot of stuff on a color side. Colors always confuse everybody. So yeah, you have to have a good understanding of color. But I think the most important one is really a good eye, like what the textures looks like. If you're making I don't know, like a hard surface texturing, like if you're doing a metal is just not a painted metal. It should have the raw metal, and on top of that your paint and everything. So you have to visualize all of these things. You have to use masks. Like Mai is amazing with smart materials and smart masks basically, and you can use the power of Mai or these masks to introduce those to have more realism in your textures. So, and again, the other thing is to invest a lot of time in reference collecting. I mean, doing something from a photo is one way, but whenever you have to do something from scratch, like you just have a concept art basically. I mean, it's so difficult to understand how the material looks. So we used to go and do reference search for individual part of that asset just to see how material behaves, and try to replicate that as much as possible. And on the same time, as we are all artists, we have our own touch. So yeah, I mean, you put your own beautiful magic to your textures so that it's not go overboard on making something really photoreal, but at the same time you have your own touch to have an artistic look on it. That actually looks amazing at the end of the day. And yeah, I mean, if I talk about Mari, I mean, we have these materials library right now. I mean, the material library is amazing. So you can basically see how your texture is behaving on the right there and then, you know. So that's what I was thinking, like, in a nutshell of texturing. So yeah, hopefully I answer your question.
I was going to say, I know I singled Vikas out there, but guys, if anyone else has anything to chip in on that question, please feel free to speak out.
Okay, I really think that there's the craft part and the art part, and the craft part is the easy part to achieve. Is which buttons I press this button, it does that. You go to a college, you go to wherever, you can tutorials, you can learn that. But what do you do with that? The art part, that's the important, especially if you want to stand out. Like understanding appeal, understanding what makes something look good, that's what, you know, that's the difference. That's going to get you noticed.
I feel also for me is like be able to see maybe a deeper level of what something looks like. For example, if something is like a scratch metal, everybody understands it's metal underneath and paint on top. That's easy to understand. You paint a mask in between it. But even on that layer of paint, there is more going on. And on the metal itself, there's more going on. I feel like there's just, you have to look kind of like deeper into the next level kind of subtle details. If you show your demo reel that you can actually see that, you're demonstrating like to that level, then you will be like instantly more impressive. And I think for like on the production side, I feel like you have to be a person people like to work with. That's separate from art.
The social game.
I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, especially in production art, I agree. Just being a team member, learning. It doesn't matter what position you're in, whether you're a supervisor or a junior, we can all learn from each other and grow and learn new things. That was the exciting thing about hiring the new team at ILM Vancouver, is because we got people from everybody, different studios. They had different ways of working, different techniques. Everybody is willing to share. I learned so much. Man, I sweat half the time when I was working there just because everybody was so good, and you constantly grow and learn from those things. And what Chun Chun was saying too, I agree. Like I spend so much of my time just staring outside at certain things and how it works and how it breaks down. And people think I'm insane half the time. I remember working on Avatar for plants and going to the garden shop with a coffee and staring at how dry and decay breaks down on leaves. And people thought you're just nuts, but it really helped sell the story. I mean, it really is a story, and I think that's what people forget. It's like you can sell a story with concept design, but you also sell a story with your texture work. And is it new? Is it old? Is it worn? What's the story of the object? What's the asset? How does that story fold into the bigger picture? It all kind of works together with that type of stuff for sure.
Yeah, I think I remember watching one of the King Kong making ofs, and it was some guy who was doing a bigature of the steamship that goes into Kong Island and Skull Island, and it was like how the guy's like grunging up the side of the ship, and it's all about, well, this grunge got to tell a story. Like, all right, where's like the port on the side? That's probably a little bit of leaky oil, and like let's follow that down the side, and it's not just there; it's telling a story. I absolutely agree. So one question based on something you said earlier, Rain, I was going to ask is how do you avoid over-texturing, like you mentioned?
Yeah, that's a trick. I mean, it's a personal work is one thing. Production work is another thing, because you definitely work on a show, and there's a couple of shows that won't be named where you look at the final product and it's just overkill. It's totally overdone, and it's definitely a trick. I think a lot of the over-texturing also comes into studying traditional artists as well, and good CG artists, as well as seeing where your eye rests, looking at negative and positive space, really kind of going back to the foundational principles of art and why you like something. There is a reason. Like some of the things I don't like is when somebody will look at your art and they'll be, I like it, and you ask them why, and they don't know why. They just like it. I mean, that's cool. But then there's also people that go, I don't like it, and you explain them, you ask them why, and they don't know either. So I think it's a really important thing to start breaking down that understanding with your own art, and also looking at other pieces as to why, like spatial relation, design language, all that type of stuff. And I think it's what Bikas was saying too, that there's certain, we're almost like in a weird way, almost like actors. I consider that we get hired for certain jobs and others. And yes, we have this broad spectrum of what we can paint, but then there's certain things we absolutely love to work on, you know, such as creatures or different things like Adam was saying. And I think that's, we bring our own flavor to that, even in production art. But I don't know, I'm probably talking in a very roundabout way, but it's a hard thing. I think it takes a lot of years to look at stuff and really pull outside yourself and see, you know, is this over textured? Is this overdone? Where is my eye? Where should my eye be going? You know, if it's just all there and confusing, you know, it's tiring on the eyes.
It's one of the things that Paul Polino said in one of our previous webinars, where he was doing a scratched painted metal surface, and had the masking on all the edges across the entire thing. It looked great, but then his supervisor said, well, actually look at reference, and is it really chipped everywhere? It's like, no, it's just one or two places, and that's what sells realism. So that resonated for me, absolutely. One of our top questions here is, what is expected from a freshly graduated artist who wants to get into look dev in VFX industry? I'm going to pick on you, Adam. Start with you.
Well, I've been, because I'm a dinosaur, like Jack, I've been through many phases of the industry. And there was definitely a phase where you had to be a kick-ass ninja sharp to get in. That phase in Montreal, at least, is long gone. When we started, when Framestore started, I was here when we were 50, and we grew to 800. MPC came over with 2,000 something, 800 people. So the schools couldn't keep up with our demands. So basically, if you showed up to we would hire you. We would go to the end of school things for the best schools in town, and all the students already had a job. You know, so it really depends on the time and the place. Usually, we do expect people to show a certain technical proficiency level. It's not, if there's not many contenders for the job, it's not maybe as high as you would imagine. They have to be nice. They have to look positive and have energy and be interested. They have to look like they know what they're getting into, can deliver, and are positive about it. You know, it's a bit hard. If I'm a student, I'm going for a job interview, I'll be super stressed. But looking like you can take the pressure and still be nice to work with is super important. So yeah, it's not easy, but it's not always the same thing, because it really depends where you end up and when it is in the point. Like, I was in interviews where they so much needed people that were like, start working today. Like, I started working on the day of the interview because they needed people right now to press the buttons. And so it's kind of like my life story. Again, born in Israel, and I moved across the ocean because the industry was here. So if you have to make sacrifice, you're seeing you're in a place, okay, where there's not many jobs, and you can't get through that first barrier, maybe you need to be in a different place where the jobs are. It's not because you're less good, it's maybe you're in the wrong place. That's it.
Because you being head of assets, you surely have to go through a lot of interviews for texture artists.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, what Adam said, I totally agree with that. I would put like 2 points additional point onto that from my perspective is, one, yes, we can learn certain stuff from a college. You know, you can do like tests and you do your own skill sets and everything. But when you come to production, production is a very quick time. Like every single show, which I can see right now in these days, is they require quick intervals or, you know, iterations of your asset. So I think your skill sets or your experiences comes from all of these things. You know, like you understand, you learn certain stuff, but you take that to a production show, and then while you're working on different type of assets or different skills, like different skill sets of assets. You understand how, like, what are the techniques you need to get these requests from a VFX supervisors or a CG supervisor would be done. So experience matters here. The second thing I would say is always receptive to every kind of suggestions or notes from a VFX supervisor or a CG supervisor, because again, I mean, every show is so crunch at this time. Like, there will be notes. Sometimes you really don't understand how to achieve that. Honestly, don't do anything. Just stop there, go have a coffee, come back again with fresh mind, and I'm definitely sure that you'll get that point done or the note being addressed. So take it easy. I mean, don't worry about all of complexity and technicalities of look dev and textures and everything, but just focus on how what are the tools or what are the techniques you can use. And most of the time, almost like 90% of the time, things are pretty simple. We just think as it complex, So I think that's my take on like everyday basis, how what you should be expect as a freshly graduated artist from any of this college, when they come to the studio or the production environment.
Awesome. And Chan, you obviously put yourself out there in your YouTube channel, and I'm sure you have a lot of students approaching you with this question. What was your take to them?
For me, normally I try to find out exactly what kind of job they're looking for, because it really depends on what kind of job you're looking for. The requirement is really different. Some people approach me because they want to go into game or go into film. It's just really different. For me, to stand out, it's demo reel, right? You need to have a good demo reel, because especially when you're fresh in graduate school, nobody knows how it is like to work with you. You don't have track record yet. You have no recommendation, nothing. All you have is your demo reel. So if you have a professional demo reel that stands out, that shows that you have a good eye, it's likely people want to give you a chance just to see how it is like to work with you. And then if they like you, and then you're on your way of moving on. So for me, what I would tell somebody is to first of all, just to know that film is you want to go for, and then to know what kind of demo reel that people will pay attention to, and just try to shoot for that quality. There's like a pretty clear standard when somebody look at a junior demo reel and to be like, oh yeah, like I want to give this guy a chance. And there's a lot of demo reel out there that already show you what that quality is. So go do your research and know what that is, and just keep working on your stuff until it looks like that, and then it will happen. It's
yeah. One of the questions actually was in that area, like, do you have to have an organic character textured in your showreel?
Not for junior, because you're probably not likely to do that kind of job anyways. Right now, it just work on something where I can tell that you have a really good eye. That's all that really matters. Yeah.
So no presets, actually go and craft something, do one thing well rather than volume.
Yeah, and you most likely will have to model your own stuff unless you're working with someone. So to be good at organic sculpting, that takes a lot of practice and time. So you might not want to, if you want your first job, maybe save that for later.
Or if you're in a university, buddy up with a modeler or sculptor.
You could if you find someone, but most cases I don't see a lot of collaboration like that. Not if you want to be certain quality, that means you need that modeler to be at that exact quality as well, right? So how many of your classmates are like, it's not easy to match up with someone.
Yeah, I totally agree. Because it's like, it could be a great model, and if the textures aren't there, then it brings down the model. If the model isn't great, it brings down the textures and the look dev. But I agree too. I think less is more. Please don't show everything. Leave them wanting more, I think, is the best thing. Like you said, work on what you're passionate about and what you like. But if you are questioning it, don't put it on the demo. Like it's just work on those things, because you want to put your best foot forward. It's always better if they want to see more, or sometimes an art test or different things like that. But yeah, it's really important to just work on those key fundamentals for sure. You
also have anything to add to that? Or sure.
Yeah. I want to two things. First of all, really, Vika said it. Sometimes during the interview, we can throw that test out too. We give you a comment on your work. Don't be defensive. We're actually testing you. The test is on a different level. How will you react to comments on your work? If you're super defensive at this point in your career, you know, don't be. Accept it. All right, sure. That's exactly what Vika said about dailies. But you know, what happens when you're a student in the interview? If you get comments, accept them, accept them. Second thing is the demo reel. There's a terrific example. Emily Luke is a texture artist. Her demo reel was a spinning ice skate. Everybody was fighting to hire her. We were trying Image Engine won out because her teacher was from there. But look at Emily Luke's demo reel, a spinning ice skate. She took a scan, cleaned it up, redid the materials, looks photoreal. You're like, that's exactly what we do in the studio all day. I want her. She can jump in and work tomorrow. So that's a terrific demo reel. That's not like, oh, I sculpted 10 photorealistic characters. No. That's a great reel for a starting texture artist to look at.
Exactly. And then Emily is awesome too, because I work with her a short amount of time at Image Engine, and again, personality, fantastic. So that goes so far too. Like, personality is so much for sure with that type of stuff. And I agree, don't be defensive. I mean, when you start, like everybody's been saying, take that direction, learn from that. Even if you think you're right, doesn't matter. You're in production art. They have final say. You need to be able to absorb that and learn from that and move forward. If you're really happy with that, then have that as an alternate version that maybe you can show, and maybe things will change. But really just hit those notes and learn from why they're asking these things. It will make you a better artist for sure.
Thanks. Nice one, guys. Here's a quick one. In your various studios you've worked on, do texture artists need to UV their own assets themselves, or is it done by other departments?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Adam.
No, you go first.
No, I mean, yes. In my personal case, what I can chip in, and probably this is my own personal opinion on that. What we used to do is, because due to modeling does the first model and they know how to do UV, probably they can do quickly UV. The best idea what I can think is they do a first pass of UV. They will do, they would properly lay it out. They know all the tips and tricks about how to flip-flop all these UV, so that texture artists will save a lot of time. But at the same time, when a model got published or handed over to the texturing department, I would still recommend or suggest texture artists to go through and see if the UVs are actually correct in the way they want to texture it. If they think that, okay, there will be like some part of it they don't, or they want in a certain way of texturing, probably best example would be, say, we do have something like a cylindrical object, but for some reason, modeling art is just UV like a diagonal shape or something. But we know if you want to have a texture on a cylindrical object, it needs to be like properly flattened out. That will be easy, and that will save a lot of time for the texture artist to save it. So that's why when a model got published or handed over to texture artists, I would still recommend to go through and see if the UVs are actually laid out properly. If not, spend some time, talk to your production or talk to your relevant people, saying that, look, I need like a couple of hours to fix this, and once done, publish the model, send it to, again, probably like modeling department, so that they can publish it and you can start texturing it. So it's not like a one-way process, but it's a collaboration. So VFX industry is collaboration. Everybody wants to collaborate to make a beautiful thing at the end of the day. So to save time and back and forth between two different departments, I would say yes, both the departments should be maybe 50-50, maybe 60-20%. Who knows?
I definitely remember receiving an asset where all the belt straps were just wibbly wobbly auto UV, and it's like, well, if that was straight, I could just slap a tileable on there and be pretty much done and just paint on top of it. So yeah. UV request back to modeling, or just do it yourself.
Yeah.
Adam, you were going to say, yeah.
Most of the assassination attempts of texture artists by modeler in Framestore is because we bounce back UV requests. UV should be done by modelers because they know when they tweak a little thing, they can just fix it straight away. If they start communicating to me what little button they tweak on a 50 gigabyte chip, then that's never going to work out. On assets this heavy, modeling, do the UVs. New modelers always have this issue because there's a lot of learning and it's not fun. It's nothing creative, and it's really annoying that texture artists get to enjoy it, right, and work faster and go home because of it, but modelers have to do it. So yeah, it should follow modeling. It should be bid properly. Modeling should be, and modelers, and this is important because sometimes you bid it for the modeler, but the modeler takes those days and he scopes with it. And then he's angry at you as a texture artist and says, I don't feel like doing UVs. Well, guess what? That's your fault because you were bid a week to do UVs and you didn't do it properly. So yeah.
We, on the other side, I'm too anal, so I deal with UVs. ILM, we did our own UVs. We drove it that way. Modeling might have done it. Weta, we did our own UVs too, but for the most part, from what I remember. Pixar, we did our own UVs. But it was just because I find it works for me. Like I really like it. There might be back and forth, but I think when we're plotting out materials and all these things, it worked pretty well. I mean, we had it in the bid. The UVs were part of our bid, like Adam was saying, but on our side. But there's sometimes too, like if I need to rotate something really fast, I'm just going to do it myself, and then at least my tileable is working this way or that way. But then you have other studios like Disney that drive everything with PTEX, so they don't need to worry about that stuff. But
does anybody else use PTEX here? Yeah, I was just going to say, does anybody else use PTEX?
I did at Pixar.
No.
That was interesting. It's hard. PTEX is hard. It has to be like a locked model, like with no changes. Yeah, it actually works pretty. Like I used it mainly on environment stuff, and it worked pretty well. I liked it because I was able to drive back in the day when XGen wasn't included in Maya. I had to drive XGen grass and stuff, and I used PTEX with that with 3D Paint, so it worked pretty well.
So yeah, here's the question. I'll start with you, Chen Chen. From Connor, how far do you push the non-destructive procedural workflow before swapping to projection-based hand-painted workflow on an asset, specifically on an organic asset where you're expected to produce quick turnarounds and texture concepts?
For me, you never really stop non-destructive workflow. It's even when you start hand painting, you're still using like separate layers in case you need to go back. You still use masks quite a bit. You never stop being non-destructive, especially in production, because there's always a schedule, and you always need to do changes really fast sometimes, and you always need to be able to do that with your setup. But in terms of go from procedural to hand painting, it really depends on what it is. Certain things you can do full procedural and get great results, and certain things you can do a little bit. And like recently, like there's a tutorial I just did with like the ornaments, the round thing, where there's so much sculpting detail that with procedural, bake some substance like mask and stuff, it's already looking really good. You just need to maybe reduce certain areas, add to certain areas, and you're done. But another video I did intentionally was just to texture something that's mostly the surface is flat. In that case, you need texture to do a lot of the work to show off the surface with different kind of like paint and drips or dirt or whatever. Because surface is flat, you cannot generate too much edges or cavities to help you too much. So it really depends on what it is.
Yeah, Rain, you've had an opinion on this before, on how much procedural do you do versus hand painted.
Yeah, I think Chun nails it. The thing is too, there's you can do so much with procedurals, and the thing is, the one thing I love about Mari versus a lot of the other things out there is I love masks and the ability to bake masks out, especially in production art when that has to be an AOV. It has to go through look dev and through shots and through comp. You can generate all these masks very efficiently and very quickly, and then build out consistency across multiple assets, which is a big thing in production of art, of course, is the consistency. I think procedurals are really good to a point. I think what happens is with the younger artists is they get carried away with one PBR material to rule them all, like in Photoshop, one brush to rule them all. There's no such thing, right? So it's really about mass, layering, opacity, and really looking at the sense of scale. That's one thing I notice with a lot of up-and-coming artists when they start, is their sense of scale is completely off. Again, going with language and the storytelling that we were talking about earlier of the asset. But yeah, I think there's a lot that can be done, but with those procedurals, like Chun was saying, a lot has to come into the mass, and whether it be hand-painted mass, which I love, or you start with a noise mask. Kind of what you're saying, Rory, to earlier with what Paul was talking about with the edges are great, but if they're across the whole surface, so how do you deal with that? There's times like I use that, say, on the ATST, but then inside that I drove a noise mask that then broke up the edges, and it still wasn't giving me enough. So then I, as a final icing on the cake, went in and hand painted on top of that mask. Again, like Chun-Chun was saying, non-destructive workflows that you go in, and that's still a layer on top. So if the VFX soup comes back, whoever says, no, I don't want that, I can remove that layer and then paint that in, hand paint that, so it becomes a very, you know, your eye, like our eyes will naturally pick up the ladder effect, right? The ladder effect is very dangerous in our trait. Whereas if you have a ladder rung and you paint perfectly, we can sense the pattern. But if you remove one ladder rung, instantly it becomes more organic, and we start to pick up the variance, and it becomes different. So it's essentially like that with texture painting. Is if you do that with procedurals, for me, I love doing it to a point, say 50–60%, just to get the base down, and then you start painting in your hero stuff. But again, like what was mentioned, is what Chun-Chun was saying, is I definitely keep it as non-destructive as possible. I try not to bake down. I try and keep it as viable as possible, because still that base that you start with can still be then pushed to another asset if it has universal topology, all these different things, and then you just keep that other top layers for that asset. Nice.
Yeah, big let's go.
There's also a gray area, I would say, by using procedurals. Yes, we can achieve a lot of stuff. Like we can go until reality, but again, when I mentioned train your eye, this is where you have to train your eye, saying that, okay, am I using too much procedural? Is it looking too much of procedural? You know, like I know that like supervisors or even leads, they can just see a render and they can say, look, that's like, it's looking too much procedural. You know, so it's a gray area, and as an artist, we have to train ourselves to understand how much I can use procedural and how much I can paint on top of that. To make it still non-destructive. You know, you have your mask, you have your cameras to which you projected, and so it's like a 50–50% of your work. But you create your main textures with the look by using your procedural textures as much as non-destructive as possible. But again, you have to come down. If you want to match something to a proper reference client has given you, then at some point in time you have to project something. You know, that's how you have to make kind of non-destructive way of working. That's how I can take in here.
Awesome. Let's notice the time is coming up to the end, so I just want to try some quick fire questions. In all of your studios that you've worked, how many texture artists are typically needed to texture one hero asset? Like how much is the texture art split between colleagues? Go.
I don't know. I can chip in. It's a difficult question. It's all depends on how hero that asset is. If it's a digidouble, I mean, the best way I can see here, one would be do the body, one would be for clothes. You know, that would be amazing. You can save a lot of time. But at the end of the day, someone needs to accompany both the textures and see if our clothes are actually matching, or the colors are actually matching or suitable to the asset. But it's a typical question, but it's a really difficult question to say. When it comes to hard surface, it's totally different area. You know?
Yeah, I was going to ask Adam, because you mentioned your ginormous spaceship. How many people were split across that?
The spaceship was totally, mostly procedural, and yeah, we would just picked up Thomas Gillet's procedurals, applied them, a bunch of decals, that's it, done. Creatures, ideally, you want one artist to work on a creature because there's an emotional attachment, and you want to finish a creature. And if you want to keep your artist, we have very little, like, people don't leave the texture department. For years, we had no artist leave because Michael Borey kept us all happy. And what he realized, that people really hate losing a creature midway and then having someone else pick it up. Sometimes it feels like a failure, you know? So you try to give people all the chances to finish their creature. Now, I've had all kind of situations, from 3 people on the creature to like the last I showed, Suicide Squad. I did all the creatures that Frames from Montreal did, the weasel, the shark, and it's not ideal. I mean, ideally you would split it between more people. But just the way that we had production kind of demands, it was like, oh, I was the only one available. I started these creatures, they were running, and Prod said, you know what, this one's good enough, this one's great. Oh, just, it's really, really wonky. It changes, but ideally, one person takes a creature to completion.
And just talking journal numbers here for, say, a hero character, what's the general amount of items you guys would work on and resolutions for patch? 40? You don't want to go over 40, 50 ideally, because then Mari can handle 4K res and be fine with it. I've seen a lot of different approaches, different houses, less patches, 8K textures. I prefer 4K textures, around 40 items, 50. And yeah, that's the size. I saw a question about timetables. Like I said, Suicide Squad, one of the creatures was a week, the other was a year. So it really depends.
Yeah, it's usually about 20 for the body and whatever for the costume. Usually we're driving at ILM. Hard surface assets, totally different beast for item size. But I mean, I've tested Mari too. Like there is shot fixes I had to do, and I was doing 16K projections, so it could handle that and I even tried on one in Valerian. I had to reprojection through Katana, but because we got it from another vendor, the UV size was so small that I actually was doing 32K and then bake that out from a camera back to 8K projection through Katana. So it's like, it was slow, but Mari could do it. So it was it was a bit scary.
That's insane.
There could be surprise at any point of time, you know, like you painted something like 4K and that particular asset was going to be on some other shot, and you actually get to know after like 3 months, oh shit, the texture is not matching, or it's not holding up that moment. Exactly. So you have to project it again, you know, it's like a back and forth again. Well, so it's all connected, you know, like cameras, UV, how you UV it, who's gonna do it, you know, all of these things. But yeah, surprises.
You're totally right. I mean, that's fun thing about production, or I suppose character building for all of us is, you know, they say it's only ever going to be mid-ground ever, and then all of a sudden it's one shot that's right in your face, and you're like, they're like, you have 3 days.
So one of the questions in our polls was, do you use layer stack or do you use no graph? And I want to check with you guys in your workflows. Do you use layer stack or no graph? And
no graph. Love no graph.
Layers.
No graph.
There's a loaded question.
Yeah, it's totally loaded. I'm working on node graph. I'm old school, man. I'm layers all the way. My node graph is Katana. That's where I use my node graphs.
Yeah,
I'm working on node graph.
The node graph setup is pretty much the same inside of Mario. You can transition. No problem.
I know.
I was a big fan of layer-based. I was an old school guy again. I mean, recently I started using node graph, and it's like amazing. I mean, you can do. The best thing is, you know, all of these like geo channel and, you know, like baking points, and you just make like one and then just plug it in. And because we're dealing with Katana kind of application, or Houdini, so for example, is so like in a day-to-day basis, both are, like all of them are node-based. So your brain at some point you kind of work on the same way, like, you know, where exactly I plug in, you know, what exactly I plug in, so I'll get the output. So it's like the question, you like Canon or you like Nikon, you know, so that's how you can put it.
I personally agree. I think if I'm a student seeing this node graph, that's the future. Use node graph. That's the future.
Yeah, it's true.
Yes, I mean, and it has so many, like you said, because so many more options than the layered. I would use the node graph. If I'm doing a creature, I'm so fast with layers. I so know what I'm doing, and it's so much more comfortable. It's like a glove. And I mean, that's the only reason. It's just because we're dinosaurs. I would definitely pick up the node graph for sure. I'm also forcing myself to use it for the future because, yeah, that's the future.
Yeah, well, I've seen what Chen Chen's done. It looks so good, like on her tutorials with the node graph. I'm just like, I need to get on it. I still have PTSD from Mari 1 going to Mari 2. That was when Mari 2 finally happened. It was the best thing ever, so I'm stuck with that.
And the thing is, there's so many things going in the node graph. There's so many great nodes, but in reality, when you're actually working on your things, you don't touch so deep. Actually, you just need to learn like 10, and you pretty much can do your work. And then with time, you can explore and discover more interesting nodes and add to your workflow. But to start working is actually super simple. I think a lot of people just see the connection and get scared and
I got the news. The nodes don't bother me. I think that if you use the power of nodes, you have to learn the nodes. You have to read the manual, go through all of them, saying, okay, I have that node that does this. Great. If you just use Node Graph to manage a layered system that you could do faster and more comfortably in layers, then that's exactly what I've been for the past kind of 2 years. And I'm just going to use the layers then. If what I need is, I'm getting it. But yeah,
I'll shout out to our documentation team. They did an amazing job doing docs on all of our node types with like pictures and images and examples. Yeah. And also
send it to me too.
learn.foundry.com. The other thing is that's where we're putting a lot of our effort and design and features and quality of life is in the node graph in Mari, because that's where we see all the power, and we've seen artists such as yourselves take it to that next level. And in Mari 4.7, we've one of our top requested features is make the paint nodes recognizable. So they're now salmon. You can now see a salmon node in your node graph, and like, that's a paint node, and it goes, well, like the salmon when it's active. But I think that's pretty much all the time we have today. I'm sorry we didn't get around to answering all of your guys' questions. Maybe we should do this again sometime. But
part 2.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you guys for coming along this on this panel and sharing your opinions and insights. And I hope everyone had a good time.
Thank you very much. Everyone. Have a good day.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.